Hey everyone, welcome back to Drive On. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and today my guest is Gina Elise, the founder of Pinups for Vets. Gina graciously left her blossoming career in the corporate world to focus on full time work for her nonprofit organization that's helping out veterans. We'll get into that in just a bit. We'll learn a little bit more about her journey and the amazing work that she's doing now, supporting the veteran and the military community. We met at the Military Influencer Conference a couple weeks ago, and it was amazing to meet you. Amazing event in general, but it was amazing to meet you there, Gina. And first off, welcome to the show. Really glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that maybe to get started here, can you tell us a little bit more about kind of the idea behind Pinups for Vets and how you kind of connect that vintage allure of the 1940s pinup style with your vision for helping out the veteran community?
Yes. So it was basically back in 2006, and there were a lot of stories coming out in the news about our troops coming back from Iraq needing medical care. And I've always been a huge fan of World War II nose art. Back during World War II, they used to paint these beautiful women on the sides of aircraft to kind of boost the morale of the troops and remind them of what they were fighting for. They called it nose art because it was painted on the nose of the plane. And I thought I would take my love of that beautiful art, bring it into today, and create a project that could support our veterans and troops today. And that was kind of, the origin of the organization. In addition, my grandfather was also a World War II Army veteran.
Awesome, awesome. And so you said 2006 is when you kind of first started having this idea, but you're coming up on your 20th anniversary here pretty soon, and
Yes.
so it started off as it was just like a fundraiser. If I'm correct on this, it was just a fundraiser to help for like one specific need, wasn't it? And
Yes.
then it kind of blew up into this bigger organization, right?
Yes, yes. So I initially only planned to do this for 1 year, like a side project. I was a hotel manager, at the time, and just, yeah, was doing this on the side as a way to give back, a creative and fun way to give back. My background is in theater. I majored in theater at UCLA, and I was a dancer for my whole life. So I'm very heavy into the arts, and so I like creative things. And I also like creating things from the ground up, sort of that entrepreneur spirit in me. And so I created the first calendar. I had no idea, Scott, what I was doing, although I had a friend that was an amazing photographer. And so we created the first one. And the intention was to donate the proceeds to a local veterans hospital so they could buy some new rehab equipment. And then in that same year, I started delivering the calendars as gifts of appreciation to the veterans in the hospital. And I kind of started seeing, the impact that that was making. I would get dressed up, like this very World War II style, the red lips, the cat eyeliner, the flower in the hair, and all that. And I would start to see, they would kind of forget about where they were for a little bit. When you're going through a very hard time, it's nice to have distractions, just to take your mind off of it for a little bit. So I would take the calendars into the hospital and spend some time with the veterans. And then we ended up donating the proceeds that year to a local VA hospital here in California. And also started shipping care packages to deployed troops because we would give people the option on the website. You can get a calendar for yourself. You can order one for us to deliver. And when I say us, at the time it was me, to deliver into the hospitals, or you can buy a calendar to ship to a deployed service member. So there's all these options, different ways to support. And so I only thought 1 year. And then our initial supporters, shout out to mill bloggers at the time. If you're, familiar, they would call it mill bloggers, troops that would be coming back, that would blog about, what they were, about their time in Iraq. And I connected with a lot of the mill bloggers, and they started kind of getting the word out there about what I was doing. And cut to the end of the first year, I thought that was it. And then our initial supporters started asking, "Well, when's, like, the next calendar gonna come out?" And I was like, "The next calendar?" Like, I only thought I was gonna do this for 1 year. So I'm like, "Okay, 1 more year." So I did it for another year, donated the money to a military hospital down in San Diego, the Naval Medical Center down there, and was doing a little bit more visits. Keep in mind, this whole time I'm working in the hotel, and I kept my lives, I don't talk about this all the time, but I kept my lives very separate. So I was a corporate sales manager during the week, business suits, everything. On the weekends, on my time off, I'd be a pinup. So I didn't want anyone in the hotel to kind of find out about what I was doing on the side. It was a very, just it was a corporate environment. I didn't know what they would say,
Right.
and I was the youngest person on the sales team, so I kept these 2, like, double life very, quiet. There was 2 times, though. I don't know if you're interested. There's
Oh,
2.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, there was 2 times that, my cover was almost blown. So I got an email from the LA Business Journal, which is a business publication in Los Angeles. And they said, you're going to be, or you're nominated for Volunteer of the Year. And I said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I was looking at the email, where is the ceremony? Guess where it was?
Oh my gosh, not at your hotel.
At my own hotel, Scott. So I thought, "Oh, no. Now people are going to know what I'm doing." And so, honestly, I went down for the ceremony at lunch. I told my colleagues, like, "Hey, I'm going to lunch." I ended up winning that category. I had to go up, make a speech in front of, like, hundreds of LA business people. For sure, I thought, like, someone on the food and beverage team was gonna say something.
Right.
I walked back with my award tucked in my blazer, back to my desk, and nobody said anything, and I
Wow.
yeah, and then the other time, my counterpart walks into my office and she said, "Hey, so, I heard you on the radio this morning on the way to work." And I said, "Okay, please don't say anything," because I was doing radio interviews,
Sure,
like, I
sure.
and yeah, it was a crazy time. For 4 years I did this, guy 4 years I was doing both. And so at the end of 4 years, I ended up just making the decision to resign because
Mhm.
I felt like this is my passion, and I wanted to see if I could grow the nonprofit full time. And so I said, "Okay, I'll try it for a year. I'll see if I can focus all my efforts." I'm pretty like I know my own work ethic, and I'm pretty like driven. And so I thought, "Okay, if I can just focus all my energy on this, maybe I can make it happen." So I left, resigned, um, my dad thought I was crazy with that decision, but you got to follow your passion and your purpose, which
Mhm.
I discovered that was my purpose. And yeah, and here we are, almost at 20 years, but a huge change happened. I would say about was it the 7th year in? I started getting messages from female veterans asking me, "Hey, Gina, we see what you're doing. Can we help you? Like, can we volunteer with you on these hospital visits?" And I said, "Yes, that would be amazing." So I started getting the ladies to volunteer with me. And Scott, it was this veteran to veteran connection that I cannot provide, right? I'm not a veteran.
Sure.
I'm just a patriotic civilian. But when I would introduce the ladies, the patients would say, "Wait, because they're dressed up like me. They'll say,
Mhm.
"Wait, she's a Marine? She's a Navy veteran?" "Yes." "Oh my gosh, where did you serve? Where did you serve?" It was like this instant, like, brotherhood, sisterhood. And so, not only was it beneficial, I think, for the patients to have that connection, but it was also beneficial for the ladies that were volunteering with
Right.
us, just to kind of have that sense of brotherhood, sisterhood again. And yeah, so so then I realized, hey, I need to start putting them in the calendar because I was meeting these incredible women and I wanted to start to spotlight their stories. And so I think it was around 2014 I took, was taking myself out of the calendar and started putting the ladies, and we would do these makeovers on the calendar shoot for the women, turn them into pinups for the day, and then feature them in the calendar. So now the whole calendar is all female veterans. I'm on the cover still. But we have, amazing women I mean, just for the 2025 calendar, we have a lieutenant colonel, we have, a Seahawk pilot who you met, Jen
Mhm.
Benny.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 2 Purple Heart recipients in this calendar. And in the history of the US military, there's only around 500 female Purple Heart recipients. And so we have two of them in the new calendar for 2025. I mean, the women are amazing. They have about a combined service of, I think, 117 years.
Wow.
And to me, it's really a way to start telling their stories, because I think when in general, people think of a veteran, they think of a man,
Mhm.
and they don't think of all the amazing women that have stepped up to serve our country. So I like to think that getting their stories out there is sort of shifting the perspective or perception of what a veteran is. And it's a way
Right.
to start sharing, these incredible experiences of these inspirational women.
Yeah, absolutely. And when to your point, what you were saying earlier, when you go into these hospitals and you have this group of women who go in and they start talking, there's that instant connection. I
Yeah,
mean, it happens all the time on this show where I'll be interviewing another veteran who I'm just meeting for the very first time, like, in conversation other
yeah,
than, email that we might be exchanging to set up the interview and that type of
yeah,
thing. Um, I meet him for the first time, like, we kinda had a little chat before we started recording, and
yeah,
then we start recording. By the end of the episode, I feel like I know the person, like, I've known
yeah,
him for years, and
yeah.
I'm sure when guys go into the hospitals, um, there's a similar connection where
Yes,
it's like there's just this common language, just common, ways that you interact, and
yes.
it just
Like little inside jokes,
yeah,
little
yeah, exactly.
military slang. I mean, I see it when I'm with the girls, in the hospital. It's amazing.
And I have to imagine too, and I haven't been to any of the hospitals like
Mhm.
to see the interactions taking
Yeah.
place, but I have to imagine some of the older veterans who are in there, maybe the World War II era veterans who are in these hospitals, when you go and you see them, to them, I have to imagine it's probably pretty nice to get a little bit of that nostalgia, to
Yeah.
see people kind of dressed up the way that they might have used to be
Yeah.
dressed up a
They're
little bit,
shocked.
and
I mean, they're
yeah,
shocked. Like,
exactly.
they'll say, "Am I dreaming?" And, like, "This is the best thing that's happened to me all day," and that's just so nice to hear, especially a lot of them can go for weeks, maybe even months with not getting any visitors, they're just seeing, like, the hospital staff every day, and
Right.
so, yeah, I think it's just, like, a nice surprise for them, and it is that little bit of nostalgia, that classiness, that, yeah, it might bring them back, and yeah, I think it's really fun, and the ladies they love seeing the reactions too. I mean, a lot of times, the Vietnam veterans will start to cry because especially them, like, they did not get the proper things when they got back,
Sure.
and so just to feel that appreciation, we come in the room and we're thanking them and asking them, like, just questions to start the conversation, and "Where did you serve?" and, "Where are you from?" and just a little conversation. I mean, it's a token of appreciation and a conversation, and I like to think that sometimes it's the smallest gestures that can make the biggest impact, and we have some really amazing stuff happen, like, on these visits, things that I'll never forget the rest of my life.
Yeah, and when you go in, like for and I'm not, I don't want to like minimize at all what it is that you guys are doing because it is impactful. But to you and the other ladies who are going into these hospitals and making these visits, to you, you're taking maybe a few hours out of your day and you're going in and that's what it is to you and obviously you're probably taking away probably is meaningful to you and everyone else who goes in, but to your point some of these people haven't seen anyone for maybe weeks or
Yeah,
maybe even potentially months,
yeah,
and to have this special visit, it's like that just made the whole day or maybe
yeah.
even the whole visit, the
Yeah, I
hospital
mean,
stay.
even, like, before we leave the hospital, the staff is asking, "Well, when are you coming back?" I'm like, "We're not even done yet," So it's nice, to
Right.
get that kind of reception and to see, like, the impact. Just a few, like, instances of some my favorite
D
memories.
Yeah, please.
When I went into a room, and I always, ask the veteran questions, and even if I think they're nonverbal, because a lot of times, people can understand even if they're nonverbal.
Mhm.
But this gentleman, he was answering my questions very quietly, but he was answering them. And I left the room, and the nursing staff rushed up to me to tell me that this vet has suffered a TBI, and that was the first time that he spoke in a month.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so I like to say it's the power of the pinup. Power of the pinup.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think, that's just, um, kind of a testament to what it is that you guys are doing as far as the service, to these veterans. Um, obviously, we talk about the service that service members provide to the country, but
Mhm.
sometimes we don't think about like what can we do to give back to them.
Yeah.
Sure, we can talk about, okay, what policy needs to be passed, and laws,
Yes.
and all this kind of stuff, and
Yes.
but what can an individual do to
Yes.
give back to
Yes.
those people? And sometimes that means the world to people. When you have someone like yourself, or any of these other ladies who uh, go into these VA hospitals and make these visits, like I was saying before, that could just change their whole outlook on their whole situation. And
Yeah.
um, you know, lawmakers in Washington, or wherever, they can pass all these laws and do all these things, but sometimes it could take years before that
Yes.
that one individual sees any kind of change
Yes.
from whatever laws get passed. And so,
Yes.
like, what can an individual do, right? and
Yes.
and you started this almost 20 years ago now,
Mhm.
um, thinking that this was just a one-off kind of thing, and yeah, we'll take some pictures, we'll put a calendar together, we'll
Yeah.
raise some money,
Yes.
and but how many, I mean, I don't even know if you can give a ballpark estimate. Like,
Yeah.
how many people do you think you've actually been able to impact this way?
Is there so as far as, like, our visits, I know. So, we have visited over 20,000 veterans personally. This is, like, individual visits.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I have the map on our website. So we're currently in the middle of a 50-state hospital tour. And the goal is to visit at least one VA hospital, military hospital, or state veterans home in every state. And we usually visit around 100 patients per visit. Um, and we have visited over 100 facilities across the US, and some of these we've gone back to multiple times,
Sure.
especially the ones here in California. It's easier for us. So as far as like the individual visits, it's been 20,000. As far as like the rehab equipment, that's hard to say because the rehab equipment that we're donating, it's being used by thousands of veterans across the United States. It's being used daily.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to say as far as like that impact. But I did want to read you just quickly from a letter.
Yeah, sure.
Because we're talking about like how one individual can make an impact and really instill like a sense of hope in somebody. So I received a letter um a few years like after I did this specific visit, but I just wanted to read a part of it to you. So Dear Gina, I recently came across your Facebook page and remembered you from your visit to the VA Medical Center in blank, and I'll leave that, just
Sure.
for privacy. I was a patient in the psychiatry ward suffering from severe PTSD and depression after my tour in Fallujah, Iraq with the Marines. I had very little hope and felt a tremendous amount of guilt and loneliness. It was definitely one of the hardest times in my life. I cannot possibly express in words how grateful I am that you visited our unit in the hospital. Your kindness, generosity, and smile made a horrible experience for me a little more tolerable. He goes on to tell me a little bit about his life. He said, in Fallujah, I was trusted to be the lead on our patrols and combat missions and had received a commendation after being ambushed at very close distance by the enemy. To go from being a highly regarded Marine infantryman in combat to a patient on a locked psychiatric ward was one of the most dehumanizing experiences I have ever been through. I was the only veteran from the Iraq war there. I felt weak, embarrassed, and lonely, but your calendar and your visit made me feel a little bit like a hero again. It was a scary place to be. Thank you so much for that visit, and I'm looking forward to sending the next calendar out to a few patients in the hospital. So it was just such a nice, I don't know. It's like I did not expect that. This is a couple years after I had visited,
Right.
and just to get that out of the blue just shows it. That literally shows that. time that you spend with someone while they're going through a very intense, challenge in their life can have a huge impact on them and give them that sense of hope and that sense of, like, giving them back their identity again.
Well, yeah, and especially for someone like the person that you were just talking about from
Yeah.
that letter, who went from being on top
Yeah.
of his game,
Yes.
like, you can't touch this guy. He
Yes.
is,
Yes.
as good as it gets, to
Yeah.
being where he was in a, locked,
Yeah.
psychiatric ward,
Yeah.
and how humanizing that must
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
I've never been there myself, so I don't know exactly what he was feeling,
Mhm.
but I gotta imagine it's nothing good, and
Yeah.
when someone comes around who's not wearing, I only know this from the movies, but, wearing the white, jacket and,
Coats, yeah.
the coats and,
Yeah.
coming around and giving them the medicines and
Yeah.
doing all this kinda stuff. When it's someone other than that who's wearing something flowery and
Yeah.
something that's exciting and
Right. Yeah.
bright,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, this person
Mm.
took time out of their day to come and talk to me? Like, that's pretty amazing.
And maybe it was, like, a little reminder of, like, what's outside of the walls,
Yeah,
and, like, a little hope of, like, what's to be. Like, it's not always gonna look like this, you know?
right, even though you might be going through something horrible right now,
Yeah.
it's not always going to be that way, and there is
Yeah.
hope for
Yeah.
something, and that's something, honestly, like, for the listeners who might be struggling in their own way with
Mhm.
whatever it is that they're going through, um, like, there is hope, right?
Yeah.
And even someone who had it so bad that they were, locked up in a
Yeah.
psychiatric ward, um, they got to a point where they were able to express gratitude
Yeah.
and, it's a lot of times when you're down and depressed and
Mhm.
everything, you can't even be grateful for something as significant as this,
Yeah.
and but then, he was able to kinda turn things around and
Yeah.
now,
And you'll never believe
obviously.
this, Scott. Guess
Yeah, go
what?
ahead.
He's a doctor now.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and you know what? That's awesome too,
Yeah.
because, um, in addition to, um your visit and the, little bit of hope that maybe he
Mhm.
got that day. Maybe it was a lot of hope. I don't know,
Yeah.
degrees of hope or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, for the listeners, it's not like it just gets better so that you can just get by, right? It gets better to the point where now you can actually thrive and
Yeah.
you can do these great things. You can go out and if you want to be a doctor, you can be a doctor
Yeah.
if that's in your future. If you want to
Yeah.
be, whatever else it is that you want to be, maybe maybe my goal is I want to be a great husband. I want to be a great, wife. I want to be a great, whatever it is that you are. Go be a great one of those. And
Yes.
there is hope for you, even if
Yes.
right now you're not that
Yeah.
for whatever reason. There's hope. And
And it's
and
it's I feel like it takes baby steps.
yeah, yeah.
It's like one little thing, especially when you are that low.
Hmm.
It's like one little thing after another. It's you're not gonna get better, like, all of a sudden, right? It takes, like, little tiny step after step after step to get to, a better place, so
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure he didn't start med school the day after
no,
you
no,
visited,
no.
right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, but okay, from there, there's that, okay, there's now I have hope that,
yeah.
someone actually gives a damn. And,
Yeah, yeah. I
and it
think
then
that's
you can kinda build on that, like you were
I
saying, right?
I think, like, that makes a huge difference for people to know that other people care,
Right.
because I think I feel that, like, sometimes when we're in the hospitals is, like, it just to know that other people care and, like, you matter,
Mhm.
because it can be so isolating in there,
Yeah.
and just the fact that, sometimes we'll tell them, "Oh, our supporters are, like, getting these as gifts for you." So just for them to know that people out on the outside are remembering them, like, that is just, like, a huge recognition, and I don't know, just it can give you a sense of hope and happiness and joy that someone is remembering you and hasn't forgotten you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know we've done a lot of talking about, um the impact on the veterans in
Yeah.
the hospital that you guys go and visit. But and like you mentioned, you mentioned the other women who are in the calendars,
Yes.
the other female veterans. I've met and spoken to several of them at the military
Mhm.
influencer conference that I
Mhm.
was talking about earlier.
Mhm.
um I actually had Jennifer Marshall on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
And so, all of them that I spoke to were absolutely wonderful people. And to your point about when you go into the rooms, talking to people, they were super easy to talk to, like super
Yes.
personable,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
great personalities throughout all of them. So, um, but I want to turn this question around a bit. So, in what ways do you think that the work that they do and you do um, helps you guys specifically? Like, so how does it?
How does it help them?
Yeah, how does that help,
Yeah.
like, you going into the hospital or, any of them?
Yeah.
Have they ever,
Yeah.
given you any kind of stories about,
Oh,
like,
huge,
how
huge.
that helps them?
Yes, and it was something that I didn't expect. Like, I always knew that this would help the patients,
Sure.
and that's why we're doing it, for the patients. But little did I know that a side effect would be the impact on our very own veteran ambassadors. And, for the longest time, it's kind of been hard for me to nail down, like, what is it? Like, why do they love it so much? And I kind of came up with like an acronym that I think can kind of describe as PIC. So purpose, identity, camaraderie. So I'll kind of go over those. So I feel that when our veterans are in the military, that there's a very strong sense of purpose and they're working towards a mission. And when they get out, a lot of times they feel like a little bit disconnected because they don't have that same purpose, when they're in. And so doing this, the ladies call it service after service. So it's a way for them to give back to their fellow brothers and sisters again after getting out of the military. So I think finding that purpose again, identity. I feel that this has been a way for them to reclaim their femininity after getting out of the military. A lot of times the ladies had to put that femininity, part of their identity as a woman, on the back burner to survive in a male dominated service. Um, and they love Scott getting dressed up. They ask me, when's the next event? When's the next event? Sometimes, these ladies go from having zero, vintage dresses. Now their whole closet is all vintage dresses. It's amazing to me how, like, this has impacted them, and they love it, like, they love doing the hair and makeup. It's just, like, a fun part of being a woman, getting to embrace that feminine side, and
Mhm.
so kind of getting to, like, reclaim a part of that identity, has been amazing for them. I love seeing, like, how happy they get, getting dressed up. And then C, camaraderie. So uh, this has created an unexpected sisterhood. Um, I did not plan this, but the ladies are so tight, as you have seen.
Mhm.
They are such an amazing support network for each other. It's like the kind of how they would be a team in the military. It's the same thing now getting out. Like, they're a team again. That camaraderie, that sisterhood. One of our ambassadors, who's a Marine veteran, Javon, about volunteering with us, she said, I came for the service, but I stayed for the sisterhood. So that sisterhood of the women has been so important, as a way to connect with each other, support each other. It's something I did not plan, never expected it, but is such a lovely thing to come out of our ambassadors' friendship with each other.
Well, first off, I love that you use an acronym, for this. I think everyone listening, anyone who has any connection to the military understands that acronyms are flown all over the place,
Yeah.
and we use them all the time. So pick, that's perfect. I like it.
Yeah.
Um, but just an observation from the military influencer conference. Whenever I would see anyone dressed up, any of the women who are involved in these calendars, by the way, they were all dressed up like pretty much the entire conference.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw any of them not, with their hair done
Yeah,
up and the makeup and
yeah.
the, dresses, they
They
all
they
were
represent, they
they
represent.
represented very well, yes, but I don't think that to your point of the camaraderie and the sisterhood and
Mhm.
sticking together and all that, I don't think I ever saw any of them by themselves. I think they all were, like, traveling in packs almost.
Yeah,
It was like,
they're
"Oh,
tight.
there they go," and they're all going this way,
Yeah,
and then they're
yeah.
coming back over here,
They
and
have
you
become and it's fascinating, like, I get to see it every year when we shoot the calendar, like, how fast they become friends. It's
Sure.
really amazing, like, I see that military connection not only in the hospitals with them, our ambassadors and the patients, but I see it with our ambassadors and ambassadors together because they just become friends so fast on the calendar shoot. It's amazing to see. I love it.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
the veterans, I think in general, when you have that baseline, like, there's a common ground, like,
Yeah.
common understanding or
Yeah.
whatever because of the service, it makes it easier to come together, but then you add this one more common bond,
Yes.
connection
Yes.
together. Now
The
you got these 2 things that they can share,
yes.
and it seems like that's how they're gonna come together a whole lot quicker, right?
Yeah, and you're right, it's like it's like the sandwich, it's
Yeah,
like the military connection, and on top of that, now they're a pinup, you know,
yeah.
a veteran pinup is like I think they just feel, like, so special to be a part of the group, um, just, with everything the group is doing to give back, and so, yeah, I think it's, like, all these things combined gives them that connection, and I love the quote that one of our ambassadors said about this, about kinda like the femininity aspect. She said, "There's nothing that says I can't be a hard charging Marine and a lipstick wearing pinup, so I choose to be both." So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, and to your point, I mean, when they were a Marine or a sailor or a soldier, whatever it was that they did in the military, um, the uniforms are very they're uniform, and it doesn't
yeah,
matter,
yeah,
men or women, like they're pretty much standard,
yeah,
and you do lose some of that. You're not wearing a a nice dress, or you're not
yeah,
doing the makeup and the
yeah,
hair and
and
everything
it's like you
the
don't
way you
have
would,
that
right?
individuality is
Right,
gone, but that's
right.
the purpose.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
not nothing against the military, like, that's the way
yeah,
it's supposed to be in the
yeah, it is,
military, right?
yeah,
But
yes,
I gotta imagine it's nice to have a little bit of individuality, and it's,
yes,
a lot of times, like, guys get out and all of a sudden a week later, they got a full beard and,
yeah,
like
oh,
that
yeah,
kind
I've
of thing,
seen it,
right? It's
I've
like, "Well, this is me now, and,
yeah.
like it or leave it, I really don't
I mean,
care."
I've seen some of my ambassadors get, like, nose rings and dye their hair, like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like freedom.
Right, right, right. But it's nice that they can do this in a way that that makes them feel good
Mhm.
and also makes other people feel good as well,
Yes, yes,
through these visits
yes,
and the calendars and everything else
yes,
that you guys do, right?
yes.
Um, Now for the donation piece of
Mhm,
this. So I mean, obviously there's the visits, which
mhm.
is a morale booster. It's a wonderful thing that you guys are doing, but
Which
also
I didn't mention that,
okay,
or maybe I did mention that we only have 1 state left. So this it was actually, like, a very big week for us because we completed our 49th state in North Dakota.
right.
And so now we only have 1 state left, which is Alaska. So that'll be a big trip, hopefully next spring. So that's
When
we're getting close,
when
close to the
when
goal.
when they thaw out a bit,
Yes, exactly. We're waiting
yeah,
for the
right.
winter.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, no, but that'll be great, and then, all 50 states, you'll have hit, and, that's pretty amazing, that veterans across the country, doesn't matter where they were,
yes,
have gotten some benefit from this,
yeah,
and you guys are touching lives all over the place, which is pretty incredible. But you mentioned the donation piece
yes,
and, like donating equipment to these
yes.
hospitals, right? And this equipment, it's not cheap, right? Like this stuff is
No,
pretty high
thousands
end,
and thousands of
hundreds of
dollars.
thousands of
Yeah,
dollars for some of this stuff, right? So clearly the organization needs donations, needs
yes,
money in order to be able to do this and support, trips to go to these different
mhm,
places and
mhm.
all the things that you guys do. Um, Tell us about some of the equipment that
Yeah,
you have donated and um, you know how uh, how you envision, like, future donations and what
Yeah.
other type of needs that you guys might have.
Now the organization was kind of founded on, donating rehab equipment. Like this is so healthcare is a big deal in my family. Like my grandfather that served in the army, he was a pharmacist for the army. And then so that was my mom's father, and then she married a pharmacist. So my dad's a pharmacist. So a lot of healthcare in the family. So I
Sure.
feel like that's why the organization is really focused on healthcare because I understand like how important that is. So as far as the rehab equipment that we've donated, I like to think of us as like the VA hospital fairy godmother. And we kind of ask them, like, what's on your wish list? What can you not afford that, because of your budgetary restrictions? And then we like to get them, um, what they need. And you were mentioning a little bit earlier, like, just sometimes about like the bureaucracy of getting stuff done.
Mhm.
For me, I like to get stuff done fast. So it's like, what do you need? Let's get it to you so the veterans can start benefiting, from this rehab equipment right away. I don't want this to take like years for you to get. So I think that's like a reason part of the reason why I started the organization is like I'm kind of impatient and like and I like stuff done quick. I'm like an action person, you
Sure.
know? Um and so just so an example, I've like printed out a list of some of the rehab equipment. It's a huge variety because it depends on the needs of that hospital. For instance, we donated a hand cycle trike, and the hospital was saying we will use the hand cycle trike for individuals with limited lower extremity abilities, the veterans with more significant or complete spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, progressive disorders, or loss of limbs. We donated this thing called a true stretch cage. This enables us to assist our veterans to be able to perform stretches for almost all of the joints in the body, especially the ones that are advancing in age, who are otherwise incapable of stretching in the upright position. We donated something called a Graston tool set, which is an evidence-based form of instrument which helps assisted soft tissue mobilization that enables clinicians to address soft tissue lesions. It can be thought of a massage technique. Um, I mean, I can go on and on with like the it's just different, different items. A leg curl extension. They said the equipment has expanded the rehab recovery options for our post-operative patients, as well as any veterans needing to strengthen their lower extremities. Um, I mean, I can go on and on with like the specifics of like what the rehab equipment is, but it really depends on like the hospital and what their needs are. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so we've donated something called like a reaction time tester that helps veterans to see like the reaction time, like when they're driving. I
Mm.
mean, I've learned myself about so many different kinds of rehab equipment because I'm like constantly ordering it. So
Right.
yeah, and when you were asking about the impact, I wish I could have like a number, Scott, but I don't because this rehab equipment is being used across the country in VA hospitals every day by hundreds, if not thousands, of veterans. So I don't have a number for that, but I just like knowing that it's helping veterans in the recoveries.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have, uh, you mentioned the bureaucracy. I mentioned it a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
When you mention, that type of thing, um, it it sucks. There's no
yeah,
there's no way around it. It sucks
yeah,
that the bureaucracy exists, but it does. And when something is important enough, like, helping these people recover from one thing or another,
yeah,
obviously you just mentioned a handful of the items that you
yeah,
have donated, but just from those, there's a wide range of conditions that can be treated
yes,
with those types of things. So
yeah,
people are being helped, across the country with all these different pieces of equipment.
yeah,
Some of it very, very expensive
yeah,
equipment, right? And um, the individual donations, some people may see like, oh, well, I'm donating $5, $10, $20. Like, is that really going to make an impact? Well,
yes, every bit helps.
yeah, exactly. Every
Yeah,
bit helps, but like when you take that $5 and then you multiply it by however many
Yeah.
people make a donation,
Yeah.
it has a bigger impact, right?
It
And
does.
so when you can consolidate all that, and then you can kinda judge, okay, well, where's the greatest need right now, and what can we where can we make this money stretch the furthest, and how can
Yes.
we help as many people as possible?
Yes.
That's where, where organizations like yours come in and, can actually make some real positive change in the hospitals and in the services that get offered at those hospitals, because
Yeah.
um, sometimes the hospital, if they don't have the equipment, they might just
Yeah.
say, "Well, sorry, we can't really help you," or
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
think
mean,
about it
the
that way.
hospitals are I think they don't even believe it, like, when I contact them, you know, they're shocked that someone is this organization is coming in and willing to help them get these items that now that they've been wanting, like,
Yeah.
to help their veterans, and now they have it. So it's really nice to get to hear, like, from the rehab teams about how the equipment is impacting them.
And when you started going to these hospitals just to visit the veterans
Yeah.
who are in the hospitals, did you just call up and say, "Hey, I wanna come in and just start, visiting some people," or did you just show up, or, like, how did that work?
No, no, you can't just show up,
Yeah, I
but
didn't think you could just show up, but, how does that work? Because I would
yeah,
imagine that they probably need to, figure out, who are these people coming in,
they
you
need
know?
to vet us.
Yeah, exactly.
I work with the volunteer services department in order to schedule visits, and I know that like so many of them now across the United States, so it's like a little bit easier now. But yeah, I would just kind of cold call. Hey, I want to see if I could come visit the patients and hand out some gifts of appreciation, and usually they were excited about that.
That's
Yeah.
excellent, yeah. Um, eh, and I think when you get people who actually care and actually wanna show up and
Yeah.
and make those veterans who are there, make their day a little bit brighter, yeah, of course, we're gonna wanna bring these people in,
And
right?
and especially now that, I'll explain to them, "Hey, it's gonna be, like, these 2 female veterans that are coming." So it's like veterans coming to visit veterans,
Yeah, right.
it's a nice thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of issues outside of the VA, like where people are not getting the help that they need, not getting the services and the support. There's a lot of homeless veterans
Mhm.
that are out there. Are there anything that you guys do that kind of help support those types of veterans
Yeah,
as well? So,
yes.
talk to us a little bit about that. How does that all
Yeah,
work?
it's kinda interesting because I feel like a lot of nonprofits are focused in on, like, one issue,
Mhm.
but we have a number of issues that we're trying to help within the veteran community. So whether it's, like, the rehab equipment and the healthcare of the veterans, morale, for both hospitalized veterans and deployed troops, and then homeless veterans. So in the past, we have partnered with other organizations that are supporting homeless veterans to try to make an even bigger impact. For instance, we have partnered with nonprofits Goodwill and a nonprofit called the Glamour Project to do sort of these morale boosting makeovers on female veterans that are trying to get back on their feet. We've partnered with organizations like US Vets and another one called the Kansas City Community Veterans Project. We've bought housewares like bedding, sheets, pots and pans, mops for veterans that are transitioning from being homeless, getting back on their feet again. So just even like these little housewares,
Mhm.
I feel like can make them feel like a person again. Um, yeah, so these are just a few of the things that we've done, for homeless veterans.
Absolutely, yeah, and I've had, folks on who, do other work that help support, homeless veterans, and to your point, what they said is that, just having those little, comfort items that you
Yes.
kinda take for granted, having
Yeah.
it could even just be something as small as toiletries or,
Yeah.
a laundry basket or,
Yeah.
something
Yes.
like that you
100%.
you might take for granted,
Yeah.
but if you don't have it and you don't have the ability to get it,
These are
um
like the basics.
yeah, the basic ne like,
Yeah.
I'll just call them the basic necessities, like,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
real, like, kinda, basics, but if you don't have those
Yeah.
things, and you don't have a way to acquire
Yeah.
them, that it's really kinda almost dehumanizing, and
Yeah.
it kinda makes you feel kinda crappy, and
Yeah,
so
it's like the basics you need so you can focus on getting a job,
yeah,
your
right,
mental health. It's just like those basic necessities to just, yeah, just keep you grounded. You got, your main stuff taken care of, bedding, sheets, pots and pans, that stuff to clean your place so you can move forward with your
right.
life and focus on these other things. Like, again, like getting a job, your mental health, like your doctor's appointments, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and when you finally do find a place to, an apartment or something to go
Mhm.
move into,
Yeah,
but if you don't have any of those things, pots
yeah,
and pans, bedding,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff,
yeah,
towels to take a shower or
yes,
whatever, um, then it's like, okay, now I gotta go figure out all this stuff now
yeah.
too, and
It's like we don't want people to worry about that stuff.
right, it's like that
Yeah,
that's easy enough. Let's handle that, right?
yeah, yeah,
I don't wanna say like, "Oh, it's just easy, anyone can do it," because
yeah,
obviously there's some people who need
yeah,
support, right?
yeah,
Um, but it's like there are other bigger things that they need to
yeah.
be worrying about, and
Oh,
so
totally, yeah.
focus on that stuff, and so it's
Yes,
wonderful that you guys are
thank
focused
you.
on that type of
Yeah,
stuff as well. Um,
yeah,
and the global reach really, if you think about it, because you send the care packages to
mhm,
troops that are deployed all around the world. A bunch of those comfort items from home go into those types of packages. I know when you're starting, it was just you packing them. I'm assuming that it's more than just you at this point. You probably have
yeah,
other
yes.
people who are
Yes,
helping out, right?
yes, exactly, and we ship they request most often the calendars.
Yeah,
Like, they want yeah, like, "Can we get some calendars, like, for our team?" So we're shipping the calendars a lot. We'll ship, like, our challenge coins, sometimes they'll ask for shirts, like our Pinos for Veg shirts, like, that's the kind of stuff that they actually are requesting from us.
right.
I think it's just, like, a nice morale boost for them when they get that, so, yeah, that's what we're shipping.
Absolutely, I can totally understand that. And having having been deployed, having like a piece of normalcy from home, like something like
Yeah.
that you can look at and be like, "This is America. This is home. This is what I'm fighting for." Is
Yeah,
is
yeah.
something like that, right? And
Mhm.
when we were deployed, someone, one of our guys, he wrote home and said, "Send soil, like go in the yard, dig some dirt, some American soil, and
Wow.
grass seed." And
Oh,
they shipped him soil and grass seed, and he
wow.
took this little, it was probably, I don't know, 2 by 2, foot
Yeah.
little, piece of wood that he put together, filled it with the soil, put the grass seed in, watered it every day, and,
Oh.
we had a little piece of American soil in
Oh my
Afghanistan
gosh, I
that
love that.
we could go walk on the American grass and, American soil and everything like that, and it was just a little piece of home, but
Yeah.
it was a morale booster, and it
Yeah.
was a box with dirt and and grass. It was like, it really wasn't that big of a deal if you think about it, but,
Yeah.
like, to us, it was
Little
like, protect it at all costs, like, this is not
oh,
getting
I
messed
love
up,
that.
that kinda thing. So,
Aw.
but and when you think about, the troops deployed overseas, just
Mhm.
having something normal,
Yes.
outside of whatever the war zone is that they're in, or it may not always be in a war zone, they still be
Mhm.
deployed, but,
Mhm.
there's other things that it's like, you're not home. You can't
Yeah.
just, you know, get in your car and drive to, you know, something that has that comfort of home
Yeah.
here, you know?
Exactly.
You're stuck on a base somewhere,
Yeah.
and you don't have those the comfort of home, basically, so that
And also, I think for them to know that, again, that people are thinking of them,
yeah.
like, that can make a difference.
For sure, yeah,
Yeah.
and I again, going back to when I was deployed, there were people in my unit that I served with, they didn't get a single care package
Mm.
for the longest time,
Yeah.
and I was like, that kinda sucks," and,
Yeah.
like, I had, very supportive family, I was getting care
Yeah.
packages all the time, and I told my wife, I was like, "There's some guys here, they haven't gotten anything," and so,
Oh, yeah.
one time she sent me this box, it was so heavy, I don't know, like, the people in the post office were probably cursing her because it was just so heavy,
Yeah.
and she packed it with so many, like, snacks
Oh,
and other just things that, it was like, "Hey, like, nobody's gonna get out of
share.
here without, getting something. And so,
Yeah, that's really nice.
so it was one of those things where it's just like, here, everybody take something, and everybody
Yeah,
get something, right?
yeah,
But it's again someone thinking of you, and
yeah,
that's exactly what it is that you guys are doing, and I think
yeah.
it's wonderful that
Thank you.
you're doing that. So, um, you know, uh, I think, for the listeners who are out there and maybe hearing about the great work that you're doing, I'm sure a lot of people have probably heard about, the pinups for vets at some point or another. Maybe didn't know the specifics of exactly what it is that you guys do. Hopefully, this episode helps shed some light on
Mhm,
what it is that you guys do. But can you share a little bit more about where they can go to provide support, or if they're a
mhm.
female veteran themselves that
Yeah,
maybe wants to get involved with
yeah,
some of that? Like, what's
yes.
the process and how does all that work?
Yes. So first, to support the organization, you can go to pinupsforvets.com. That's the website. And you can make a donation on our donate link, or you can buy something from our fundraiser store. As far as the calendars, you can get a calendar for yourself. You can get one for a deployed service member that will ship in a care package. You can get one for a hospitalized veteran that we will deliver on our hospital visits. So there's a number of ways to kind of support. And we have lots of fun items in the store. We have everything from like flasks to tin signs to shirts, challenge coins, blankets, really cool stuff. If you're thinking about doing some holiday shopping, it's
Right.
gifts that give back. As far as getting involved with us as a female veteran, we usually post a casting call in the spring for the next calendar. So we will ask people to submit pictures, to submit a little bit about their service and why do they want to be a part of the calendar and our nonprofit organization. We usually get hundreds of applications from across the country. It's very hard to narrow it down to, there's only 13 or 12 months in the calendar. We have 13 ladies this year because we doubled up on one of the months. And we have two ladies in the month of August, two coasties. Um, but uh, yeah, that's kind of the way that ladies get in the calendar. As far as just volunteering with us, anyone can message us, through the website if they want to volunteer on our visits.
That's awesome. And I'll put a link to the website in the show notes, and that way, folks who want to make a donation, purchase a calendar, or any of the other products that you mentioned. I took a peek through your store on your website, and there's quite a few products like you mentioned,
Yes.
which is pretty cool.
Yes.
And so if anyone wants to buy any of those or don't make a donation, I'll have the link there, and stay tuned for the casting call in the spring.
For
Obviously
the 20th annual
for the
calendar.
20th. So this is a big one.
This is our big anniversary calendar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be special, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know the plans or anything that might be in the
Neither
works.
do I, Scott.
Okay. So I'm putting it out there. It's going to be special. It's going
Yeah.
to be big. So that's going to be on you now. Now you got to make it happen. No
That's on me,
pressure.
yeah. No, no, no pressure.
So
It'll be good. I'm excited for it.
yeah, no, it is exciting, and obviously when you do anything for that much time, 20 years
Mhm.
of putting these calendars out and helping, with the equipment donations and supporting the morale, and all the things that you guys do. um, 20 years is, a significant amount of dedication. It's not the 1 year that you thought it would be, maybe 2, if you twist my arm, I could do 2,
Yeah,
it's a significant amount of dedication, and so, and it's more than just, taking a few pictures and slapping a calendar together and and, doing it like that. It's way more than that, because it's like a year-long thing where you're going and you're making the visits to the hospitals, and you're donating the equipment, and you're fundraising and doing all these types of things, and so it's a lot of work that goes into
mhm,
it. It's not okay, well, we made the calendar for this year, so we're done, and now we'll
yeah.
do nothing until next year. Like, there's a lot of
Yes.
work behind the scenes, I'm sure.
Oh, I mean, even just to do the calendars, months and months and months of production.
I'm
It's like
sure.
making a movie every year.
Yeah, yeah, because, and you shared with me some of the photos from the calendar,
Yeah,
when we met, and, there's different scenes for
yeah,
each one, the
yes.
different different people in each calendar,
Different
or sorry, in
cars.
each yeah, different cars and,
Yeah.
different, vintage cars and,
Yeah.
other things like that. And it's really cool, and it's really well done. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'm sure that that requires a lot of planning. It's not like you just
Oh,
found a car on the side of the road and you're like, "Hey, let's
yeah,
take a picture here."
yeah.
It's
It's all logistics. It's
logistics. Yeah,
all
big
yeah,
time.
I mean, it's all just production. It
Yeah,
really is like, planning like an art exhibit or a movie. I mean, it's huge from the
sure.
casting to location scouting to just planning all the photo shoots, and then even after the photo shoots, editing, then the actual graphic design of the entire calendar, of every single page on the calendar.
Mhm.
And, the calendar is special. We like to have a lot of like the military holiday, like the birthdays of all the branches and just like special events like in military history. So it's a
Right.
pretty unique calendar in that sense. So yeah, just to make the calendar is a gigantic process every year.
Well, it drives me nuts sometimes when I look at a calendar and they have these weird off the wall holidays like National Cake Day or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
something stupid like that, right? And it's like you're looking through it and it's like, okay, where's Memorial Day in this calendar?
Yeah,
Where's Veterans Day? Where's
yeah,
the Army birthday or the
yeah, yeah,
Marine Corps birthday? All
yeah.
those different holidays, and none of those show up, but we know when National Hot Dog Day is, and whatever. Like, uh, I don't care how much you like hot dogs. Like, I don't really care
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that personally. I
Yes,
don't know. That's just me. But
yes,
I would much rather see the other holidays that are in
yes,
there. So I
yes.
appreciate the
Thank
effort
you.
that goes into putting those calendars together.
Thank you.
Um, so I guess, kind of to wrap up here, I want to thank you for taking the time, first off, to share what you do, the work that you're doing to help our veterans through Pinups for Vets. The dedication. It's kind of a unique thing that you're doing. I don't know that anyone else is doing anything similar to this, but it's kind of a unique thing, and it's I think kind of inspiring too because you can take one person like you back, almost 20 years ago now, who just had this idea and you ran with it, and now thousands of lives have been benefit from the work that you've been doing. Like anyone can have an idea, and as crazy as it may seem at the time, they can take it and run with it, and
Yes,
see where it takes them. And who
yes.
knows? 20 years from now, we have a whole nother group of people who are doing something different that is benefiting people in a different way. And I think that's kind of an inspiring thing there. So I want to thank you for not only taking the time to come on the show, but for all the work that you've been doing and will continue to do. Because I don't
Thank
think
you.
this is over anytime soon for you. It seems like your dedication is in it for the long haul. So
Thank you.
I do encourage the listeners though to go to the website, pinupsforvets.com. I'll have that in the show notes, and get involved, support, whether it's through a donation or if you are so inclined to uh, join the ranks of the ambassadors, to do that as well. So thank you again, Gina. I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.